to fire at government troops using the indemnity that had been offered. This is documented in reports which emanate from sources other than the government of Sri Lanka. In all these situations, the course of action that was adopted by the army gave pride of place to humanitarian considerations. Indeed, the military operation could have ended considerably earlier with far less loss of life and limb to members of the armed forces. But the conscious and deliberate decision was made by His Excellency the President and Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa not to do that. So that is the true situation on the ground, which is grossly misrepresented by some of the criticism which has emanated from certain quarters. So that is how the armed forces behaved during the conflict. Both Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Lieutenant General Jagat Jayasuriya spoke of the continuing contribution of the armed forces to nation building, which is no less significant than the unique role they played in bringing peace and stability to our land. Let us consider what the armed forces have done after the conflict was over, that is after May 2009. The Defense Secretary referred in some detail to the work, the very difficult and arduous work that was done by the army with regard to the clearing of mines. This was an incredibly complex operation. Several months ago, there was a situation in which a French bomb disposal expert, he wasn't a layman, he had specialized knowledge, he was blown up while engaged in demining operations. In Pudukudurippu and Merrington Pattu, those are some of the areas that the LTT occupied in the closing stages of the war, the work is still not 100% complete. Now it is the mining which had been done in those parts of the country which created considerable delays with regard to the resettlement of internally displaced persons. And as Secretary Rajapaksa pointed out, starting with 296,000 people, it is now down to almost nothing. And he said that by the middle of this month, the resettlement of IDPs would be completed. So mining, demining, was one of the principal humanitarian beneficial activities embarked upon by the army after the conclusion of hostilities. Then housing. The whole idea is to make it possible for people who had suffered so much agony and pain during 3 decades to begin a new life with confidence in the future. To move forward in life. In order to do that, you have to provide them with the basic necessities of living. And among them, obviously, is shelter. So the government of Sri Lanka, very rightly, placed a very sharp emphasis on housing. The army played a very significant role in the construction of those houses by providing, as we were told by the Defense Secretary, both engineering expertise and manpower. Today we see an economic renaissance in the northern part of Sri Lanka. One of the principal reasons for this has been the focus on the development of infrastructure. No government in Sri Lanka's history has undertaken so much expenditure on the construction of highways and railroad systems. This could not have been achieved without the active contribution of the armed forces. They played not just a useful, not just a desirable, but indeed an indispensable role with regard to the construction and the improvement of infrastructure in that part of the country, which substantially accounts for the unique economic progress which has been achieved in the northern province within a remarkably brief time span. Then the other aspect of it is the disarming of violent groups. That is absolutely necessary to provide a backdrop for many other things which need to be done as a matter of priority in the post-conflict situation. For example, how can you move towards the conduct of elections in an atmosphere that is bereft of duress if you still have armed groups operating in the areas where the elections are to be held? Who can actually do the disarming? The armed forces have necessarily to perform that function. There is nobody else who can do so. So these are some of the activities that the armed forces have been engaging in since the end of the conflict, and without their vigorous involvement, it would have been quite impossible to achieve the degree of success which has been accomplished on the ground during the last 3 years. Now I want to make a comment on the perception in some quarters, which has been articulated quite persistently abroad, with regard to the perceived or the alleged militarization of the northern province. Again, it is very important to understand the historical context and the cultural moorings or the underpinnings in that situation. I mean, every country has a culture of its own, a social history, mores, traditions, and values. These go to the root of identity, and they are not transferable across cultures. It is a fact of life, which we all recognize, that at the height of the conflict, the armed forces were called upon to perform functions which an army would generally not undertake. For example, the retail trade. They had to do them, not through choice, but through necessity. In a situation where the LTTE was creating mayhem, there was a total breakdown of community life, creating a huge lacuna. Now, somebody had to fill that lacuna at that time. Otherwise, it is the community that would have suffered because of the lack of provision for the delivery of services essential to the life of the community. So the army had to step into the void and undertake a whole cluster, a very wide range of functions, which would traditionally not fall within the scope of an army. They did that at that time. They had to. If they didn't do it, it is the community that would have suffered. Of course, with the return of normalcy and stability to those parts of the country and indeed to the whole island, it is no longer necessary for the army to engage in functions of that nature. And they are withdrawing from those functions voluntarily. It is not that they wanted to undertake those functions. The exigencies of the situation compelled them to do so. They are now withdrawing from those functions. But I want to tell you very candidly that there are certain hallmarks of the culture to which we are proud heirs. And one of those characteristics is profound and genuine gratitude for people who have helped us in times of adversity. That is deeply entrenched in the psyche of the Sri Lankan people. The people of the north remember how the army protected them, as the priest told me in Nagadeepa. And today, if a school principal in that part of the country is organizing a prize giving or a sports meet, they do tend to invite a representative of the army. So some foreign observers visiting that part of the country are greatly distressed to see a representative of the army present at a school function or a school prize giving or a school sports meet. The army is not their qua army. They are not oppressing or intimidating anybody. They are simply responding to a warm, cordial invitation by the head of the school, who wants to have the presence of a representative of the army as a token of appreciation of a genuine service which the armed forces rendered to the community at that time when the community was in dire need of the services that were rendered by the army. We make no apology for saying that. That is part of our culture. Now, we are told that the army should withdraw entirely from the northern province. Here again, we make no bones about saying that it is not the intention of the government to do so. Indeed, it would be unpardonably reckless for the government of Sri Lanka even to contemplate such a course of action. History cannot be forgotten or wished away. They are doing two things. And one must remember, I would like to say by way of prefatory comment, that there is no discrimination or disparate treatment that is being meted out in this regard to the northern province. You go to any part of the country, go to Hambantota, there is an army presence there. It is grossly misleading to talk of cantonments. There are no cantonments. But the northern province is a part of Sri Lanka, and the entire territory of Sri Lanka is subject. There are, of course, security is one of the prime considerations of the state, and there is an army presence in some shape or form in every part of the country. It will therefore be entirely unrealistic and exceedingly unwise to think of a total withdrawal of the armed forces from the north of Sri Lanka. That would be to treat the north as a separate entity, which we are certainly not prepared to do. But having said that, I hasten to add that we are doing two things. One is significantly to diminish the numbers of the armed forces, and that is a matter of record. The numbers have been significantly reduced. But we are not stopping there. Not only the numbers, but the role of the armed forces, the nature of the duties and functions that they are discharging in that part of the country has also undergone a basic transformation in keeping with the changes that have occurred in that part of the country, which we heard about during the last hour and a half. They are now confined to a far narrower area than was the case during the period of the conflict. That is something that ought to happen, and that is happening. So these are some facets of the current situation which need to be emphasized, and that is one of the reasons why I particularly appreciate this seminar at this time, because it provides a platform, a forum for this kind of information to be disseminated over as a wide a spectrum as possible. Now, the next point I want to make to you is that in the total situation that we are dealing with in this seminar today and during the next 2 days, these discussions would be incomplete if we do not address one of the basic elements of the equation, which is the diaspora. There were some passing references made to the diaspora earlier this morning. It is the experience not only of Sri Lanka, but of many countries which have gone through conflicts of this nature, that there is a certain disconnect between the attitudes of the diaspora and the attitudes of the people affected in the countries in question. That is not surprising. It is a matter of human nature. It is a matter of human nature. If you are far removed from the area in a geographical sense, if you have left the country in the 80s and you have carved out for yourself a new